Okay, so as part of our growing under protection, we need to know some houseplants in detail. And let me introduce you to Benjamin. Now, Anastasia's got this great idea that she has a name for all the different plants, and if you can remember what Benjamin particularly likes, like every human's a bit individual, you might be able to remember the ideal growing conditions. So this is Benjamin, also known as Ficus benjamina. And over here we have a relative, which is, this is Bertha, and this is Ficus elastica. So they're both in the same genus. This is a variegated form of Ficus, and you do also get variegated forms of Ficus benjamina as well. So in our houseplant section, this one is classed as a foliage plant only because the flowers / fruits are very small and insignificant, so you grow it for the foliage. This plant comes from sort of warm tropical areas, Southeast Asia, North Australia, Malaysia, so it likes warm conditions, humid conditions. I always think of houseplants as plants on holiday, so you're trying to recreate the conditions in this country or in this classroom that they would have in their natural habitat. So it's always good to see where plants have come from. So Ficus benjamina is a shrub or tree. You can see this is practically a tree, really. It depends how you classify a tree. Obviously when you buy them in the garden centres they're about that big, but he's been here a good few years now and has grown quite tall. So you can see obviously it does have a tree-like structure, a main trunk with these pendulous drooping branches. It is also called the weeping fig. So nice glossy elliptical leaves with a point, so they are nice and glossy. They do need cleaning regularly to keep looking their best. What else can I say about him? Yes, that's him in all his glory, and he's doing really well here by the back door. So we'll talk about growing conditions in a second. So first of all, we need to know how to propagate him. So he's propagated by taking semi-ripe cuttings towards the end of the summer. So you let some nice young growth come on, then you take a 10 centimetre tip cutting so that the bottom part is woody and the top part is soft, add hormone rooting powder and put it in a very open growing medium. So have a look on the RHS website for how to take semi-ripe cuttings. That's how you start him off. They don't produce seed in this country, so you're not going to start from seed, even though it does say start from seed on the RHS website. That would be more in the natural habitat. Growing media, a good John Innes number 2 or number 3, so quite high in nutrients because it's a very limited root zone, and each year you're going to repot them, or every other year. So they do tend to become pot bound, so repotting is putting them back into the same pot, so you're not putting them into a bigger pot. So repotting is the same pot, you remove them, you kind of scrape off all the sort of loose compost around, loosen some of the roots out, and then put some fresh compost back in the bottom and round the sides and do a nice fresh top dressing. So they will need repotting. Feed, you're going to feed them during the more active growing phase, so during the summer, with a general fertiliser. It doesn't have to be high in potassium because we're not growing this for flowers. So a good general purpose fertiliser. They're going to need watering, of course. Again, they're going to need more water when they're actively growing spring to summer. Don't over wet them. As we all know, the roots will rot. So you can water in the base of the saucer and from the top. Let him stand in there for a good couple of hours to absorb the water up and the water down, and then pour off any excess. And then don't water him again until the top feels quite dry. So fertilising, irrigation, repotting, and he needs a bit of a shower every so often because they do get very dusty. So you can move him outside in the summer. Doesn't mind being outside when the temperatures are higher. and hopefully he'll get a bit of a shower, but he likes warm rain. You can put them in the shower at home, but don't give him too much of a shock because he doesn't like cold showers either. So that keeps your leaves nice and clean as well, and nice and glossy and shiny. Pests and diseases is our final thing we need to think about as part of our maintenance programme, and there's 3 pests that he's quite prone to. The first one is red spider mite, which often you get when you've got a very dry atmosphere, so central heating, very dry. You get these little webs at the tops with tiny little red mites, which sort of reduce the vigour of the plant by kind of burrowing their heads into the cells and sucking the sap. So that's red spider mite. You can get mealybug, which you get these little fluffy clusters, often at the bottom of a leaf, which again suck the sap. And you can get scale insect, which tend to be like a brown scale, which you'll find like little flat sort of, well, scales, flat humps, if you like, on the backs of the leaves. And again, they suck the sap out. So all of those pests just reduce the vigour of the plant, and they make the leaves look unsightly as well. So prevention is when you get a new plant, have a look all over it for scale and mealybug. Probably wouldn't see red spider mite if it was on because they're very tiny. And obviously monitoring your plants, very much part of disease and pest control. You can use chemicals to get rid of them. You can look those up on the RHS website, but with a lot of those you can actually just hand remove them, scraping them off, cleaning them off, and just keep doing that until you've got on top of them. He's very good for removing pollutants out of the atmosphere, so that's another good point about him. So we've got a computer over there, so hopefully he's keeping us healthy. And positioning, forgotten that, haven't we? Because he comes from tropical areas, he likes light, but not direct bright light. So he would be okay near a window in the morning when the light is weak, but really the light should be filtered. So he's doing really well there, actually. You can tell he likes it. He doesn't mind drafts, obviously, because we've got this back door that opens and closes all the time, and he doesn't drop his leaves. These are prone to dropping their leaves, and usually it's just when they get a bit of a shock. So sometimes if you put it by a back door, it will drop its leaves, and that's because it's a change of position, not because of the draft. Or if you put them in a much colder place, they'll drop their leaves. So they just sulk if they have to kind of move house a little bit. But they can drop apparently about 80% of their leaves and then come back to life again. So if you have a poorly looking specimen, you should be able to revive it. I think that's all I'm going to say about Benjamin for now. So bye bye.